The original multiplayer servers for the first Killzone game were taken down by Sony years ago. But there is a fan-made server that has been in place for several years now. In this video, I'm going to tell you how to configure your PS2 system or PCSX2 emulator to connect to that server so that you can once again play online. Note, if you're using the PS2, you do not need to hack it to play the multiplayer. It's mainly just changing the settings. If you're using the emulator, just know that I'm not going to cover how to set up the emulator. I'm just going to show you what you need to do to the emulator in order to play online with it. First of all, you need a copy of the game. It can either be the NTSC version or the PAL version. Those people all play together since it has crossplay. Note, there was a remaster of Killzone 1 sold on the PS3 and included on the Killzone Trilogy release, but you cannot use that remaster version for the multiplayer. It never had multiplayer to begin with. If you're playing on your PS2, you'll need to attach an Ethernet cable to it. The FAT model does not have an Ethernet port built into it, so in that case, you'll need to purchase the Internet Adapter add-on. You will also need a memory card inserted. We are going to save some internet settings to it, and afterward, you'll need to have that same memory card inserted anytime you wish to play Killzone 1 online. If you're going to use the PCSX2 emulator, you obviously don't have physical memory cards, but you still need to do the steps I'm about to show you. To build the file on the memory card, we need something called a network setup utility. It's a small program that is built into 40 different PS2 games, the ones I have listed here. For whatever reason, Killzone isn't on that list, so you will need to own one of these listed games in order to do the one-time setup I'm about to show. That goes for emulator too. You will need to have one of these games installed. Supposedly, you can also get the setup utility on one of these online startup disks, but I could not get it to work. For whichever game you choose, go into the menu system and look for the network setup utility. Its location differs depending on the game. In some cases, like with World Championship cards here, you have to build a character first, then attempt to enter the multiplayer, and eventually in the process, it'll say something like it can't find your network configuration file, and it'll place you into the utility. If you get a screen that looks similar to the one I have here, then you have found the utility. Choose Add Setting. Choose the memory card to store the setting. You're going to travel through a series of menus, and you go to each additional screen by hitting right, so just keep that in mind. Select the Ethernet adapter. Select Not Required on this screen. Select Auto. This one is very important. Select Manual. And when you move to the next screen, it'll allow you to put a primary DNS number. This is where the magic happens. Use the interface to input this number, 67.222.156.250. Leave the secondary DNS field as all zeros and move on. Now you get to name these settings. You can just keep it defaulted to setting 1 if you wish. Press X to save. It'll ask if you want to test the connection. Go ahead and select yes. If it fails, go back and check what you've entered, including the DNS number, and just make sure you have that correct. Also make sure your Ethernet cable is fully plugged in on both ends. Now we have what we need on our memory card, but there's still more setup to do. If you're using PCSX2, make sure you go to Settings, then the Network and HDD tab, and make sure this Enabled button is checkmarked. I'll also point out that the game does not run well on emulator. For me, there is a random pause that happens as I play. It happens more on certain multiplayer maps than on others. I've talked to other players who use emulator and they experience the same thing. Perhaps if I messed around with the emulator settings, it might improve the situation, but I haven't done that yet. The rest of the setup process takes place within Killzone, so enter the game, whether it be on console or emulator, and go to Game, Battlefields, Online Game. It'll go through the motions, and eventually it'll detect the file on your memory card that you created a moment ago. Choose the same settings that you set up. Select the only universe available. Now it's going to have you set up a screen name and password. This is a one-time thing, as long as you keep save password set to yes. Go ahead and fill everything out. Keep in mind that whatever you put in the account field will show as your name in the game. If you don't have a keyboard, you have to use this awkward text interface to enter everything. Choose login, read and accept the terms of this private server. You have now completed the setup, but I have a couple of more things to mention. At the time of this video, the player base of the game is small. 99% of the games take place on Sundays between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To get to the matches, go to Battlefields and select an online game, and then you can use the interface to find a game. If you go to psrewired.com, you can see a real-time count of how many players are playing the game. If you click on that count, you can see the names of the players. If you wish to chat with some of these people, there is built-in chat within the game, but you can also talk to them on the PS Rewired Discord. I'll put an invite to it in the description. Once you are in that Discord, just know that you won't be able to see any of the Killzone chat unless you go to the Select Your Game Role room and click the Killzone reaction there. Then you'll see a Killzone 1 room where you can talk to people. Note that PS Rewired has also revived the Killzone 2 multiplayer, and I have a tutorial on how to do that as well. In that case, I split the tutorial in two. One if you want to play on emulator, and another if you want to play on the PS3 system. Leave a like if this video helped you. Take care everybody, and long live Killzone.